There just isn't enough resources, enough bandwidth, enough time to do everything that you should be doing. Welcome to the We Are Slam Show, a show where we share best practices, trends, and ideas to help your business grow. My name is Tyler Kelly, and I'm here with my co-host, Michael T. Johnson. So this week, I was listening to Gary Vee, and with all of his firepower and all of his content creation, just the machine that he's created at VaynerMedia, he admitted that even he is not able to create as much content as he would like to be effective in today's content-driven world.
I think that Gary Vee thing is pretty interesting because I don't know what his current stats are, but he's for sure like kind of the most prolific content creator in the marketing world. Like he puts out more stuff than anybody, multiple things a day. But one time he said he had 17 people dedicated to just his brand, not his agency's brand, but his personal brand. And I think that's from like a year ago. So who knows how many people he has now doing it. But that makes that task seem like impossible for like...
Just for like regular people like you and I, right?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that we own, a digital storytelling, content marketing agency. And we've come up against this too for ourselves and for our clients, that there just isn't enough resources, enough bandwidth, enough time to do everything that you should be doing. And so as marketers, we really have to decide what types of content are going to have the best results for our businesses and our objectives and our goals and our markets. And so that's what we want to talk a little bit about today.
I think the other end of this challenge is, so like Tyler's background and my background, I would say your background is much more from like a marketing and advertising perspective. And my background is much more from like a video cinematography perspective. So like those two things, like if you think of a spectrum of like over here, you have like the cinematographer person, and this person wants everything to be perfect and like be aesthetically pleasing. And you just want everything to be perfect. On the other end, you have a marketer that wants consistent content. You want to put stuff out every day, and it just has to be good enough to do the job. So your brand, or even like my personal struggle, is where do you fall on that spectrum? If you're always on the perfect side, you'll never get anything done and you'll drive yourself crazy. The other side, where you just put stuff out, I think you're actually more effective.
Yeah, I think this quote can be attributed to Mark Zuckerberg, but the quote is the perfect is the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like a lot of times, especially in this world where we put it out today, it runs its course over the next few days, and then it's forgotten.
Yeah.
In terms of content, like a lot of times we just need to get that good content out there and let it do its thing, and then create the next piece of content, right?
Yeah, and I would think even like you can adjust that quote and said, perfect is the enemy of done. Like sometimes perfection will paralyze you from even doing anything. So you got to get over that if you're gonna make progress in the content game.
All right, so three big tips for any time you're thinking about doing content. There's three questions that you have to ask yourself, and it's really simple to remember. It's who, what, and where. So the first question is who is your target market? Who's this buyer persona? Who is it that you're going after? Who is it that you want to attract, that you want to bring into the fold, that you want results from? Like, who is that customer prospect that you're looking for? That's going to determine right away what type of content you need to create. So that's number two, the what.
Yeah, the what. Now that's a good question, because it's going to depend on who your audience, who your customer, who that prospect is. Like that's going to determine what that content's going to be. So that answer may be different for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, you have this spectrum in content marketing. When you have written content, if you Google content marketing, you're going to come up with a lot of results that are all about written content. So blogs and PR and guest articles and things like this. But then there's this completely, the other side of the spectrum, which is creative content, which is like your graphics and your videos and your social media content and, infographics and all that really cool stuff too. So what types of content does your audience respond to? And if you don't know, then that's where you can test some of it or kind of see what's out there in the market. But quick tip here, don't always let the market define what you're going to do, because the market could be off. And by market, I mean your competition, right? So don't make your choices based on what you see your competitors doing, because they could have no clue on how to do it effectively. And if you come in and do it a different way, then you're gonna rake in all the business.
Yeah. You can use data and your actual customers to determine what's right. A lot of times, like, your competitors are doing the wrong thing and you don't know that they're not getting any results. So don't make a bad copy of something that's bad.
Exactly. So the third question is where. So once you know what is effective with your who, then you decide where it's going to go. Because as we started the show, you know, even Gary Vee knows that you can't be everywhere. You can't create all types of content for everyone. You know, there's this new term out, this new buzzword out. It's called ABM, account-based marketing. And what this is just another level of personalization for content that you create on the fly for your demographics, for your markets, for your prospects. So where previously, like, we might have created content as an agency for marketing directors as a whole, with account-based marketing, now we're creating content for marketing directors inside of like Anheuser-Busch. You know, so that's account-based marketing. So that just adds a whole lot more work to your content generation machine. And is that even possible, especially if you have, you know, 20, 30, 40 different accounts that you're going after? Is it possible to create content on your own, like in-house, for those groups? I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah. But I think that account-based marketing idea is a good idea, because that can help you determine some of those questions, like where. The more narrowed your scope is, you can pinpoint, well, I only need to be on like these 2 networks because this is where my customer is.
And I like it because, you know, you're spending the same amount of time and effort, and if you hire an agency like us, money in creating this content, but because it's so targeted, you're going to have a higher return on investment.
Yeah.
So the big thing to ask when you're trying to figure out where is who, right? Because the who is going to tell you where they are, where they're spending their time online. Ask yourself where your prospect is spending his or her time online. If it's on LinkedIn, if it's on Facebook, if it's on Instagram, then make sure that you create content for those networks. If it's downloading white papers and ebooks and things like that, make sure you create that type of content as well.
Yeah.
And don't get it twisted and think that because Facebook and Instagram aren't business networks and you're a B2B business, that you know, you don't belong there, because the fact is everyone is there for the most part, right? Facebook and Instagram are where people are. And if you're selling products or services to people, then you need to be there too.
Yeah. I mean, Facebook's the number 3 most visited like web property of all, behind Google and YouTube. So everybody is there. Your customers are probably there. You just have to figure out how to reach them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you've answered all those questions, you've answered who, what, and where. Now you have to figure out how to create all this content for them. So like we said, like Gary Vee even knows that he can't create all the content he wants to be effective. Like, that's a pretty big chore, because the internet just needs to be constantly filled with content. And, you know, I heard a stat, and this is an old stat again, that the average like successful business that's doing well online is putting out something like between 15 and 20 videos a month. And that stat can seem like really hard to keep up with if you're a marketing director or VP of marketing and you have little or no staff to help you execute on what it is you want to accomplish. But let's give you an example of how you can create all that content. And we'll use this podcast that you're watching and listening to right now as an example of how we do this for our own brand. So first of all, after you've answered all those questions, you're creating content that targets the people that are your potential customers. So you want to create a long form, what we call like a banner piece of content. And so, for example, this podcast is 8 to 10 minutes. People consume it in, you know, longer chunks. It's like a digestible, information rich. It brings value to the person that's your customer, because that's the number one thing. You have to bring them value, or else they're not going to watch it. So we take that big piece of content, we put that out once a week. But then after we've done that, we can take this and we can create anywhere from 3 to 7 shorter video clips that we can use on social media and in advertising for the rest of the week, or, you know, the next 2 to 3 weeks. So right there, we've got 8 to 10 pieces of content right there, just off this one thing.
Yeah. And those pieces of content, those clips, those teasers, those nuggets from the show, you can then turn that into, you know, different formats. So like your story formats, which is Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat. You can do a blog post from the content, you know, so go ahead and write a blog post with the content that we talked about in the show.
Yeah.
You could do quote graphics with quotes based off, of the show, and those are graphics. You could do infographics. I mean, the possibilities are endless. The key is what grabs the attention of the people that you're trying to reach, and how can you engage them. That's the type of content, that's the how that matters, right?
Yeah. And if you were really diligent and creative, let's say we took this show, I mean, we could potentially create 100 pieces of content out of it. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to dig that deep into everything that we talked about on the show, we would have, graphics, articles, all the videos, everything. Like, that works pretty well for your brand. You've got everything you need for more than a week on a weekly piece of content.
Yeah. And, I mentioned earlier in the show that most of the time in social media, you post something today, it's forgotten about in a couple of days. But the cool thing about banner content is that it lives on in the internet, meaning like in search. This is the type of stuff that's basically like carving out for you real estate, like land on the internet. When people have questions like the ones you're answering, they're going to come across your content, and so it's going to provide value over and over again when you create banner content.
Yeah.
All right, so if you enjoyed today's show, if you have questions, hit us up in the comments on whatever network you're on or you're watching this on, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe if this is on your podcast, share it with your friends, and do me a favor this week. If you've been consuming this show on a regular basis, subscribe to our email newsletter at slamagency.com, where we release tips, best practices, and ideas like this on a regular basis in a written format. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you just watched, subscribe, then hit that bell. You'll be the first to be notified when new content goes live. After that, you can watch more videos from Slam Agency. We've picked something we think you'll love.